I think, obviously there's going to be technologies that take us forward in all areas, but something as simple, like you said, as a wristwatch, bringing you extra, if it's 1% extra better, it's surely got to be a positive thing. So for the whole area. Um, so episode 6 now, I think this probably is the one that broke me a little bit. um, so we brought back Dr. Jesus Zerdo because we had, like I said, we decided early on in this season that having 2 guests on a podcast wasn't enough time to dive deep into what we wanted to talk about. And Jesus had so much to say that we decided to have an extended secondary episode with him to talk more about the off-label use, label expansion, what it really meant when a drug sort of exists but not technically approved for your condition. And this episode was again featured on the BBC. Not that we like to mention it or anything, but I featured a few times. And I think it's very easy to see exactly why, we wanted to get Jesus back and why this episode needed to exist for this season. What did you think, Ellie?
Oh, absolutely. I think I can call Jesus my friend, and we had so many lovely conversations. And again, it was just unique because I think, again, if you're not a patient or you're working in the healthcare system, I personally had no idea about how to navigate healthcare systems. I didn't know about prescriptions. I didn't know about regulations and things such as like, what does it mean to use a drug off label or something? I had no idea that, for example, let's say Viagra, it was initially used for, I think, bronchitis and heart problems. And then it was obviously used for other purposes. But for example, for people with Raynaud's, like myself, who have severe Raynaud's, we use a low dose Viagra constantly to actually open up blood vessels and keep the blood flow going because it's a nitric oxide. And so that's kind of the conversations that are really important to have, because not every clinician can prescribe a drug off label. And then, for example, oh god, at the very start when I got it, I had to, for like 3 years, I had to have a special company actually deliver those drugs to my household. I had to sign them off. My partner wasn't allowed to actually take them on because obviously that was thousands and thousands of pounds of medication coming into my house. And that's kind of these things that add to the struggle, right? Like we said already, I'm on about, more or less 19 medications every single day. And so if you already have to kind of navigate one kind of such a procedure to actually get one drug, imagine what it kind of goes up to for everything else. Like some of them are infusions, some of them are patches, some of them are you have to go into hospital, some of them are like injections, other are pills, other. So it's like this kind of navigating this whole thing. And I thought it was really nice to see, that there are regulations obviously for reasons, but also that regulations can be sometimes holding back really essential treatment for patients. And I think the thing is also that sometimes we forget that most patients, if they're kind of very, very ill, they're very desperate. And like I say, for me, the golden sentence was, there are still treatment options. I know that if, for example, for me, it would have been like, okay, there is no more treatment, but you could try X, I would have tried X, right? It doesn't matter what X was, but I would have tried X because you want to do everything that to do to survive. And so I think that brings also a very interesting kind of ethical conundrum that I like to discuss also with Jesus, which is, patients don't really have a choice, even though we have a choice to be in clinical trials, but we don't really have a choice because no one wants to be ill.
Ah.
So yeah, I'm kind of going off on a rant, but I think it's kind of this whole, a lot of things fall into regulatory affairs, and it's very easy to talk about them in a very sterile and kind of, ethical and law way. But actually, when it comes down to the patient, for us, regulations have a very different meaning than they might have for a clinician.
Yeah, I think a main group of people that we've seen listen to this podcast more this year are demographic change has been patient groups, and this sort of candid conversation between 2 patients has really resonated with them.